is now being recorded. I'm glad I put that in there to remind myself, so that any questions that you might have or want to share with others, you can go and visit the trailer park resort section of the Peterborough Public Health website, so that you will be able to see that information later on. We also want to have the disclaimer or the disclosure that as of 9:30 this morning, this presentation is as accurate and factual based on the information that we have. Which is great. But as we've seen throughout this pandemic, things change not only day to day, but hour to hour. So this is current as of today, but stay tuned because things might change in the days and weeks ahead. So with that said, I know that Resorts Ontario has been great in providing a lot of resources and things like that as information becomes available, but we would also encourage you guys to reach out to the public health unit in your area. There are some that are logging in from not Peterborough Public Health territory. So make sure that you're consulting with the health authority within your jurisdiction, and that we'll be able to hopefully point you in the right direction. And that this is not legal advice. It's simply guidance based on the best available science that we have, the direction from a variety of ministries that we have. But hopefully we'll be able to walk you through some of that together. So for the next hour, I think that the big piece is going to be the question and answer that we'll get to for the latter half. We'll spend the first part of the conversation talking about what the current orders are and some sector-specific guidance documents. We'll walk you through what some of the things you guys can be doing at your trailer parks and resorts to make sure that everybody stays as safe and healthy as possible. And then, of course, that question and answer towards the end. We will be sending copies of this slideshow to the website as well as the video recording, so you'll have all of those resources too. So just a little bit of clarity around this. There's the emergency orders and there's the state of emergency. Now, you'll have heard recently that the state of emergency was extended until the end of June. And that state of emergency allows for those emergency orders to be put in place. Currently, they're in effect until June 9th, and typically they've been rolling over on a 2-week basis based on the science and based on the data and based on the trends and based on the number of cases and so on and so forth that we're starting to see at that command table. So the state of emergency is in effect until the end of June, but the effective orders underneath that are in effect until June 9th. Some of those emergency orders that apply to tent, campgrounds, trailer parks and resorts and the like really speak to those outdoor playgrounds, the play structures and the equipment that must remain closed, public swimming pools, spas, water facilities, those types of things, trampolines and whatnot. And then, of course, we've seen this across the province, regardless of resort property or not, but the bars and restaurants, with the exception of takeout and delivery. So those are the big ones that really apply to this. But the one that I think is a little bit more nuanced and specific to cottage resorts and trailer properties is that, speaking of those emergency orders and the state of emergency, the social gathering rule is still in effect. So no more than 5 people. So that will be one thing that we want to make sure that we're keeping tabs on throughout the course of the summer. So the good news is that Peterborough Public Health and the adjoining health units in our area have opened up or given permission for resort properties to open, which is great. And I think we saw yesterday that the province as well said that as well. So whether you're a resort owner in Thunder Bay or Windsor or Ottawa, we're now operating under the same uniform guidelines. And we're just making sure that it's that social inclusion and that social gathering and those social amenities that will be restricted at this point. And the big piece here is that the cottages should only be rented by single family units, again, to make sure that everybody's in compliance with that social gathering piece. With regards to campgrounds and trailer parks, this one here I think has been fairly standard for the last few weeks, and that seasonal campgrounds and trailer parks can open for RVs and trailers and campers and the like, provided that the person that is camping there has a full season contract and would be there for the duration of the season, and or they're used by somebody that doesn't have somebody somewhere else to go. So a snowbird, for example, returning to Canada rather, and they need to be housed somewhere. Those are the instances in which trailer parks and campgrounds would be able to be used. I look out my window. We're in Duro-Dummer Township broadcasting live right now, and I'm looking at a 26-foot camper trailer. So for weekend warriors such as myself, it's going to stay there for the time being, just to provide some clarity around that. And to make sure that those people that are using those sites certainly only have the electricity and water services with full sewage for obvious sanitary reasons as well, to make sure that people can stay safe and healthy without needing to rely on those communal areas. With regards to the same shared facilities, washrooms and things like that throughout the campground, it's the same as with the cottage resorts that must remain closed as well. And more information about this can be found at that link in terms of what is and isn't allowed. And again, I would direct you to that campground resort section on the Peterborough Public Health website. So with all of that said, Ganesh, if you're on the line, Ganesh is one of our public health inspectors, and he's going to walk us through the next series of slides in terms of things that you guys can do at your private campgrounds, looking at short-term rentals, cottages, and the like, and some infection prevention and control measures. So Ganesh, if you're on the line, take it away.
Okay, hi, good morning. Keith, can you just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me?
Yep, we're good, Ganesh.
Okay, great. And if I want the next slide, you're gonna just go to the next slide for me?
Terrific. It almost sounds like we know what we're doing.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many of you on the webinar, and hopefully this will be beneficial for you. So I'm just going to talk about a bit of a general guidance and procedures for different types of premises that are starting to reopen. So as Keith mentioned, with the private short-term rentals, the government is allowing short-term rentals, including lodges, cabins, cottage homes, condominiums, and B&Bs to resume operations in Ontario starting on, I guess, today at midnight. So I guess that was passed, so people can open right now. And owners should also consult the health and safety guidelines listed on the resorts page related to the tourism and hospitality sector when considering how they can open their doors to the guests. And operators and guests should also continue to practice physical distancing, wear face covering when physical distancing is a challenge, and wash hands frequently. And we'll be going over some of this stuff in a little bit more detail as the slides. Keith? Thank you. So if your premise is considered a small drinking water system, you still have to comply with the small drinking water system regulations. The labs are not closed, and you must start to submit water samples as required by the directive that was issued to you. Now, if you've been closed for more than 60 days, you must notify Peterborough Public Health of your intention to reopen in writing by submitting the notice to operate or reopen form, along with a copy of the test results as per under the small drinking water system regulation. Now, if you choose not to open, then of course you don't have to take those water samples. And just a quick reminder, just to record all your actions in a logbook, including the dates on which you've opened or closed, dates you've sampled, and any maintenance that you have performed on your small drinking water systems. And for more information, you can review the operating of small drinking water systems during the COVID-19 link at the bottom of the slide. Thank you. So infection prevention and control, also referred to as IPAC measures, must be incorporated daily in your facility with all related activities. Now, this is to help control the transmission and the spread of COVID-19. And these include screening and signage, physical distancing, personal protective equipment, enhanced environmental cleaning and disinfecting, and general hygiene. Next, please. So when it comes to screening and signage, it would be beneficial to place a sign for passive screening at the entrance to your resort or park, along with a list of symptoms. So what you can actually do is click on the link and download this sign and print it off and actually post it in the entrance of your facility. And consider active screening for for staff daily. So have someone designated to ask questions and ensure there are policies in place to disallow any symptomatic staff from working. Now, physical distancing is one of the primary public health measures for the prevention of COVID-19. We know that if people are 2 meters or more in distance, the risk is lower for them to actually come into contact with droplets. So you can also print the sign and put it in your facility to remind staff and guests about the importance of physical distancing. Next. Now, we do encourage the use of non-medical masks for staff and guests when physical distancing is a challenge. Now, you have to remember to wash your hands before you put your mask on and wash your hands when your mask is taken off. Now, make sure that your mask fits well meaning that it covers both your nose and your mouth. And if your mask gets dirty or wet, replace it with a new one. And when you do dispose of your mask, make sure you are putting it in a proper garbage container. Now, medical masks are considered PPE and must be reserved for those providing direct care in clinical settings. Now, if you want to read more information on face coverings and face masks, you can hit the link at the bottom of this slide. Next, please. An enhanced level of cleaning and disinfecting is required while we are all working to prevent the spread of COVID-19. You can follow the Public Health Ontario recommendations for the cleaning and disinfection for public settings found in this link. And disinfectants must have a drug identification number, also known as a DIN number, which is an 8-digit number given by Health Canada that confirms it is approved for use in Canada. Other general practices to follow include cleaning should actually start in clean areas and progress to where areas are more dirty. All surfaces should be cleaned at least daily with detergent and water and disinfectant. And frequently touched areas such as handrails and doorknobs should be cleaned and disinfected more often, depending on the frequency of the use. So if they're being used more often, clean and disinfect those surfaces more often. Now, hands should be washed after undertaking cleaning activities and any other time you feel you need to wash your hands. Supervisors and managers should actually regularly monitor to ensure that existing hygienic standards are strictly observed not only by their employees, but also for their guests. Next, please. Now, some general guidelines when it comes to laundry and cleaning and disinfecting. So first, I'm going to talk about the actual responsibility of the actual facility. So cleaning and disinfect the sleeping equipment, including bed frames, bed rails, and headboards, after the guest has checked out and before the next guest has checked into the room. Keep mattresses clean and in good repair. Wash and dry all linens using the hottest possible laundry cycle. Use washable non-absorbent mattress covers to help protect mattresses and contamination by guests. Clean and disinfect mattress covers on a regular basis. Replace mattress covers and pillow covers when they're torn. And use precautions and public health measures in laundry rooms. You also can print this poster off and actually pin it up in your laundry room to help the guests understand how to minimize the risk while doing laundry. Next, please. Now, the importance of hand hygiene must not be underestimated. It is critical for employees and guests. There's actually a proper method and procedure to washing your hands, as you can see on this poster. Now, there's 6 steps. You have to wet your hands with warm water. You must apply liquid soap. You got to lather your hands for about 20 seconds. Then you rinse. Then you dry your hands with the paper towel. And then you turn off the taps with the paper towel. I highly recommend that this sign be printed and put in the general washrooms in your facility, and also put in the guest rooms washrooms. This way, your employees and guests know how to properly wash their hands. And make sure all hand washing stations are provided with the proper materials, such as having warm water, liquid hand soap, and paper towels, and have supplies of hand sanitizers throughout your facility. Next, please. And finally, when it comes to general hygiene of food safety, restaurants and bars are permitted to provide takeout or delivery only. This includes any bars or restaurants located at campgrounds, resorts, and trailer parks. The restaurant and food service health and safety during COVID-19 fact sheet found here provides much detail and advice. And you can always consult with your local public health inspector. We're here to answer any of your questions and inquiries. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ganesh. Through a lot of phone calls and emails, we have had several questions come in already, and I'm sure these are the burning ones that many of you guys have right now. This FAQ section is pulled right from our website, and as of this morning, we've also included a submission button. So if you do have questions that weren't addressed during the webinar, or you weren't able to find on the website, there's a form that you can submit, so that you can submit that, and like Ganesh said, that information will be answered as soon as we can get to it. With that said, are beaches allowed to be open on resort property? Yes, absolutely. Beaches that are private, that are not routinely monitored by Peterborough Public Health, can be opened. With this one, however, we're encouraging you to remind your guests about that physical distancing piece, and making sure that some of those common sand toys and other types of amenities at the resort are out of sight and out of mind. But people are welcome to come up and use the beach, hang out with their family, provided that they're doing so distanced from other guests. Kawartha's huge opportunity to come up and be an expert angler. Can the fish huts be used so that people can clean their catch? Yes, again, absolutely. We just want to make sure that they're being used by one guest at a time, and a thorough cleaning and disinfecting is completed after each use. This is under the emergency order with regards to pools, hot tubs, and playgrounds. These facilities and structures are not permitted to be open with regards to those emergency orders. To Ganesh's point about takeout, takeout food is fabulous, provided that the guest is taking it away from the establishment. So in the event of having picnic tables and things like that, those would not be permitted. But if somebody wanted to take their food to a picnic spot or back to their cabin, that would be permitted. So with all of that, I'm just going to fumble through a couple little clicks here so that we can get to the chat function of today's presentation, because I believe that is where we're going to have the most questions. So if you just kind of scroll your mouse a little bit over the top there, you'll see a menu pop up with a microphone, a video camera, and a chat function that looks like a dialog box. So if you click on that, it will bring up the chat function on the right-hand side, and I'm going to turn it over to Claire Townsend, who's one of our health promoters, to facilitate the Q&A portion. Claire?
Great. Thank you, Keith. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect. I do see some questions coming in, so that's great. The first one, which looks like it's been answered already, is do you have a sense of how long it will take the labs to complete the testing on water samples? The response here, it says Lakefield SGS takes about 3 to 4 days. Ganesh, can you confirm that?
Yeah, it all depends. That's usually, sometimes it comes in a bit earlier. It all depends on the amount of samples that they're receiving.
Okay. Great, thank you. We have a question about, can guests use our non-motorized boats and kayaks, etc.? So
I can answer that one also.
Perfect.
Yeah, so yes, they can, but when they're returned back to the facility, that they do need to be clean and disinfected before, after each use.
Perfect. A question about fire pits and social distancing. If it is a communal fire pit for a whole resort. So I'm assuming the question is, can you have a fire pit that everyone has access to?
I can answer that, and maybe Julie, if she wants to add any comments. I'm probably saying no, because that doesn't, that'll take away from the social distancing aspect. So, I mean, single families can have their own fire pit and enjoy the fire, if they want to do any type of watching the sunset or barbecuing like that way.
Yeah, that's true, Ganesh. And I think the thing to keep in mind here is that this is Julie, the manager of environmental health. Where our hands are tied, we're sort of at the mercy of the emergency orders, and while there are still restrictions on gathering sizes, that's what we have to follow. So for the time being, it's the restriction to no gatherings more than 5 people. So, I mean, if a single household is more than 5 people, then it doesn't apply to a single household. But other than that, we'd be limited to 5. So the communal fire pits, it would be the same thing. So let's say you have a couple cottages being rented by a couple different couples, then that would be 4 potentially, and that would be permitted. But other than that, you are limited to the 5. So there's lots of other strategies that you might think about using. Maybe you look at reserving time slots in the evening that people can book a time slot to use that fire pit. So just keep that in mind for the time being.
Okay, great. For an Airbnb or bed and breakfast, sorry, can you serve breakfast outside at separate tables?
I'll take that one. No, anything that is anything that is served by a restaurant has to be strictly takeout. So no sitting areas. It doesn't matter what type, if it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Okay. There's a question, can we book weekly with check-in and check-out on the same day? Not sure.
Well, I'm not sure.
Referring to.
Yeah.
So I think, just to jump in, we had this question come in earlier, and I believe as long as the guest has checked out and the cleaning staff that is going in are following the guidelines for safe cleaning, there isn't a 24-hour or 48-hour piece that we're recommending at this point. There isn't direction in the ministry guidelines for that. So with that said, we're deferring to the social setting cleaning protocols.
Great, thanks, Keith. Ganesh, do you have any advice on how to disinfect life jackets?
So that's a great question. I had this question come up actually yesterday, and I'm still actually going to do some research, and maybe we can get this out, you know, on a fact sheet later. Someone actually told me that if they use disinfect on a lifeguard, it actually will compromise the material, and the life jackets won't work properly. So I don't have an answer. I'm just that question actually came up with another client yesterday. So I'm still trying to do some research on that.
Yeah, hi, it's Julie again. I'm just gonna jump into that. That's true. A lot of chemicals can actually affect the integrity of life jackets. So the I think it's the the Life Jacket Association has put out some guidance that we are going to take a look at on our end, and we'll try to include that with our next batch of frequently asked questions. So it is a really good question, and all the more reason to perhaps look at avoiding shared life jackets. And if people are going to use the things like the boats and the kayaks, then perhaps for the time being require that they must bring their own life jacket.
Perfect. Thank you. We have a question about cleaning the rooms. Do we have to leave rooms open after cleaning for a certain amount of time before re-renting them?
So one thing that will be helpful is that actually, if you once you clean and disinfect a room, actually, if you open windows for air circulation, that's fine. You know, when you're cleaning or disinfecting anything, when you're spraying something down, they should have a contact time of about 45 seconds. Which is, you know, leave it on and then wipe it off. But for more air circulation, just open some windows up afterwards.
Okay, thank you. There's a question about having campfires, and are you allowed to have people over to a campfire if they're from different families, if the gatherings are less than 5 people?
I believe Julia answered that earlier, saying that as long as the gatherings are less than 5, it is allowed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Perfect.
There was a question at 11:22 with regards to dining rooms, and at this time, dining rooms, congratulations on the anniversary, by the way, on October 3rd, that's lovely. But at this time, dining rooms and communal gatherings like that are closed.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Yeah, the questions are coming in, and sorry if I missed something. If we do miss it, we will be gathering all the questions and creating adding it to the frequently asked questions that we've posted on the website. So, yes, there's a question about can a bed and breakfast cook breakfast for their guests, and can we bring it to their rooms?
I can answer that one. Yes, that's takeout and delivery. So I would consider that being delivered. So therefore, yes, you can deliver it to their rooms where they can have their meal in their room.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's great for now. And what I would actually expect is that we're going, I mean, keep in mind that this change happened less than 12 hours ago. So I do expect that we're going to see some more guidance come out very soon about this, and just stay tuned for changes if you are a bed and breakfast operator.
Great, and thank you, Sean, for the comment here. There is a comment about life jackets and the disinfection. So there is a fact sheet on that we will find and post our website for everybody as well. There's a question about watercraft equipment. Can we use watercraft equipment as long as they're used with social distance requirements? Canoes, for example, which we did discuss.
Yeah, I think that still falls under the same category like kayaks. So it can be rented, but after each use, when it comes back, that it has to be properly cleaned and disinfected before it's been sent out again.
I'm going to defer this one to you, Julie. Question about Airbnbs and how they're being regulated and enforced.
That's a really great question, and kind of the question with all reopenings right now. I can say locally at Peterborough Public Health, we are conducting enforcement jointly with the City of Peterborough Police as needed, or the Peterborough County OPP. So we have a partnership with them, and it really is complaint driven at this point. So if we get a complaint or concern come in, it will be followed up on. With that said, all three parties, the police, the OPP, and Peterborough Public Health, we are striving to take an educational approach first and foremost. So laying charges is not our go-to at this point. It really is about education.
Great, thank you. There's a question about, will restaurants receive a heads up of more than 48 hours to properly prepare?
Are they talking about like dining then, like inside?
Melissa, do you want to elaborate?
Right now, restaurants are still able to operate. It's just that they can't dine in. So it's delivery and takeout.
So to chime into that, if I can expand, if the question is regarding will you receive more than 48 hours to open up your dining areas again, your guess is as good as ours at this point. And right now, often public health units are receiving information at the same time as the public. And I think that just speaks to the fluid nature of the emergency response and the pandemic. So when we know, we will be striving to make sure that restaurant operators are given as much notice as we can possibly achieve.
Great. Yeah, and I think that was in reference to her question. Yeah. Perfect. Did I miss any questions? If I did, I'm trying to go back to look, but if I did miss your question, you can retype it because it'll come up to the bottom and we can discuss it.
Great. So while I'm sharing my screen, I will direct you to this section of our Peterborough Public Health website. If you click on the coronavirus icon on the main page, and then through this menu on the right-hand side, there's a section for campgrounds, trailer parks, and resorts. A lot of the frequently asked questions that we've received so far have been answered, but there is also this form here that you can simply type your question into if you have a question later on, and we'll be happy to respond to that. Again, to Ganesh and Julie's point, we're in this together as much as we've heard that said a handful of times, but we really want to work together to make sure that we're doing it as safely and healthfully for your guests. And we've had a few more questions with that stall.
What about tubing and water skiing? Are they permitted?
I believe we nixed that on the website under the water activities section for lots of reasons, with regards to the close contact often required with tubing should a child or guest fall off and then need to be rescued from the water, with the saliva and excitement that could be generated and the screaming and yelling and good times. I think that the decision was made not to permit tubing at this time.
Yeah, and that also speaks to Karen's question about putting the floating raft into the lake, if it's depending what kind of raft it is. Correct. Okay. Ganesh, maybe you can direct people on where to find the notice to reopen form. Is that on our website?
Yes, I sure can. So if you go to Peterborough Public Health webpage, and on the search box, if you put SDWS, which stands for Small Drinking Water Systems, you'll go to that page, and at the bottom there's actually a link, and it actually says form for the reopening of the small drinking water systems, and click on that link, and then you can print it out.
Great.
Okay.
Karen had a question about playgrounds being able to open once the emergency order is lifted. And I think that is going to be a case-by-case piece. I know that they've opened provincial parks for day use, and they've opened a lot of the green parks and playground fields for use. But those high-touch surfaces with children are very risky spots to play. So as playgrounds are opened, that's a provincial directive. We'll be able to make sure that that is conveyed to the guests on the call as well. But the details of each emergency order as they're lifted are kind of done in consideration of risk and numbers and all of those types of things. So it's not a blanket statement that phase 1 equals this and phase 2 equals that, and that we'll be able to tell you what's open and closed as things open and close.
Great. There's a question about, can a chef come in to prepare a meal for a single family or a small group to deliver meals?
So I'm assuming the chef is being hired by the resort. That's they're going to be cooking in the restaurant or the dining room.
I think we've seen what
Same
we
with the
want to
canoes,
see.
same
Can
with
we
the
get
canoes
our,
and kayaks.
Same with the canoes and kayaks.
okay, so
We gotta get
are
those
we,
toys away.
can we get rid of this now, Candy? Did you want to watch some more of it?
Well, no, you said you can read it afterwards, right?
Yes, you can. It'll be posted.
So if the premise is hiring a chef as an employee to come in and cook, they can, and then the food can be delivered to the room, or it can be taken out.
Great.
Thank you. Can a raft be used for a single family renting?
Julie or Ganesh?
Well, go ahead, Julie.
I don't know what kind of raft we're talking about here. Again, I would say that it really depends on the intent, right? Like, it has to still be cleaned and disinfected after use. So if you can rent it out and accomplish suitable cleaning and disinfecting between families, then I would say presumably yes. That may have to be a decision that you would need to make. But I'd be cautious about what kind of raft we're talking about here. I don't know, Terry, if you can clarify that at all.
Thank you. Sorry. I just reacted to the raft statement. So like a wooden raft that's used, like a wooden dock raft that's used for swimming off of, in between. Yeah, if there's only one family, can they not use it, or you have to disinfect a wooden raft after? I'm not sure how you would do that.
At this point, I think that the key message is that any shared common touch surfaces that cannot be adequately cleaned and disinfected should be avoided. If
you wait suitable amount of time in between guests, is that a way of ensuring that it's been not contaminated?
On a wet wood surface, I mean, okay. I'd question what the suitable time is. We'd really have to do some more research of that. And I think you'd have to question, is it a necessity to offer guests at this point?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. There's a question about Lakefield Beach is connected to a trailer park and uses a public washroom. If kids don't have access, there'll be a lot more potentially going in the lake. And I'm assuming this question is, does that mean can the washrooms be open to mitigate this?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. I have been on calls with the townships, and I'm working with them on their beaches and their facilities. There are challenges with opening facilities. Part of it is the increased cleaning and disinfection that's needed and the increased demands that's putting on township offices. So I'm collaborating with them and working with them on this. And again, this is going to be something based on what we hear and the feedback we get from the public, as well as any complaints or concerns that come into Peterborough.
Great, thank you. A question about, can our guests eat breakfast outdoors on our patio if they are the only guests and we have no other guests eating outdoors?
Again, so we're going to defer to what the Emergency Resort Act says, that only food premises can only offer takeout or delivery.
Yeah, and I don't know if, am I still unmuted? Shoot, I am.
You're good.
Yeah.
So with the bed and breakfasts, Sunny, I see that's one of your question. We are really waiting on more guidance about this from the province. So I suspect that with bed and breakfast, because it's not technically classified as a food premises, I mean, you're preparing food only for your guests. It's not like the general public are coming in to eat. I think that this will be considered and will be looked at, but we're just waiting for some more guidance at this point. You are, I think, onto the right track with what I'm suspecting will be released, in that you may just have to stagger eating times in any common areas or something like that. So it's not a yes or a no at this point. It's we really need to wait for a little bit more guidance on this. So we'll include that when we release our FAQs.
Great, thank you. There's a question about, can guests swim in the lake for single families? So can single families swim in the lake?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is
I don't
the
see
short
any
answer.
issue there. Yeah.
And that was one that we have on. Again, if you are working with a private company, so Peterborough Public Health monitors the public beaches within the city and county of Peterborough. If it's been your prerogative to hire an outside agency to do that water sampling of your private beach, you may want to consult with them and figure out how to go about doing that, so your guests can be assured that the waterfront is safe and clean. But for private beaches, such as ones at resorts and trailer parks, yes, families can swim in those waters.
Thank you. There's one more at the end from Beechwood Resort asking, can the same be said for resorts that only offer food for guests staying?
I would say no at this point. Like, the bed and breakfasts are a very different setup than resorts. And with the resorts, like if somebody was renting a hotel or a motel room right now, they're common eating areas. So if they offered continental breakfast or something like that, that's not permitted to be open right now. So it's the same with resort facilities. If you have a restaurant that people are getting their food at, that needs to be taken away and back to their rooms. Like I said, the answer about bed and breakfast is not an answer at this point. We don't have the guidance yet from the province. So resorts, you're in the same boat right now. You can operate your food premises, which at a resort is a food premise. That's what's different about bed and breakfast. It's not a food premise, but at the resort, it is a food premises, which has been very clearly identified, must be takeout or delivery only.
Great, thank you, Julie. I don't see any other questions at this time.
Great. So not seeing anybody typing any new messages, perhaps we'll leave it there for today. And again, encourage people to visit Peterborough Public Health website. I don't know, Claire or Julie or Ganesh, if you have any final thoughts.
I just want to say that this webinar is recorded, obviously, and it'll be posted on the website, as well as a copy of the slides with the resource page that's following this one that's on the screen, that you can then click out to a lot of the signage and the documents and the guidance that we've talked about today.
Great. And Terry just asked about phase 2, and perhaps what we can do as well is post on this website as a go-to. There is a three-phase plan that has been released by the province that kind of indicates at a high level what would and wouldn't be open and how the restrictions will be lifted or what the progressions will be. I want to stress that document is not a calendar, it's more of a framework. But Terry, we're happy to share that with you so that you can figure out or get a better sense anyways of what phase 2 might include. But at this point, it's more of it's not a crystal ball as much as it is a brainstorm, but it is certainly laid out in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Yes, Robert, we'll be posting this video both to our YouTube channel, and we'll make sure that we have a link to the presentation as well as the video recording on the trailer resort section of Peterborough Public Health's website. Great. Well, with all of that said, thank you everybody for showcasing the Kawarthas for everybody that's going to be looking for a bit of green space and a bit of adventure. We look forward to doing it in partnership with you guys and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend.